Greetings. I'm Zach, 28 years old, residing in a cozy apartment near Newark, New Jersey. Professionally, I function as a back-end engineer for a medium-sized software firm, proficient in Python and Node. My skills aren't exceptional, but they are effective. Generally, I prefer solitude. I have a few college companions, yet I'm not one who craves excessive social interaction. Essentially, I strive to develop something genuine. Over time, my life and stability seemed enigmatic. A couple of months back, an event transpired that has lingered in my thoughts. This incident unfolded as follows. An opening on our product team became available, triggering anticipation among colleagues. The usual office rumors ensued. On Monday morning, Caroline entered the workplace. She made a striking first impression, exhibiting self-assurance without arrogance. It appeared she had endured hardships and emerged stronger instead of bitter. Indeed, she was attractive, in the same vein as authentic beauty, not filtered beauty from social media. Her age, likely in her early to mid-30s and significantly older than myself, didn't bother me in the least. Our acquaintance began during our daily stand-up meeting. She flashed a grin, shook my hand, and said jokingly, "Finally, someone who doesn't fake interest in meetings." I returned a smirk and a feeble reply. "You seem to fit right in," she chuckled. Over the ensuing days, our paths kept crossing. In the outdoor kitchen area, waiting for Uber near the elevators. It wasn't contrived. She didn't put on an act. It was effortless. We eventually started having lunch together occasionally. At first, I believed she was just being cordial, like those people who don't erect boundaries. She showed genuine interest in my life, asking about my family, my weekend activities, and so forth. She never gave off an interrogative vibe. I remember her mentioning that she had been married once before, at a young age. She thought love would suffice. Dear friends, please help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. I merely gave a nod and replied, "Indeed, life is more instructive than school." Our conversation was straightforward, devoid of flirtation. She admitted to having lived in Texas before. She moved here due to a divorce, she said matter-of-factly, much like discussing a shift in the weather. What struck me was her lack of resentment or self-pity. On a Friday after work, we attended a company happy hour. People were slightly tipsy, laughing boisterously as they sipped cocktails. She hardly drank, just one cider. Yet, she stayed till the end. When she glanced around and noticed most people had left, she asked, "Do you need a ride?" I declined the offer unhesitantly. It was peaceful in her car. There was no discomfort. It was tranquil. Jazz played softly and the windows were slightly opened. We chatted about trivial matters like my worst ever shipped bug, her first vehicle, and how distasteful dating apps can be. Upon reaching my building, I undid my seatbelt, turned to thank her, and she spoke. "Don't get involved unless you're prepared for the real thing." I smiled and so did she. Initially, I considered it a jest. Yet, her delivery was neither boisterous nor jovial. Instead, it was subdued, calculated, as if probing. I remained silent, merely laughed, bid good night, and closed the door. For the rest of the weekend, her voice echoed in my mind. Not the words, but the tone, a tone one never forgets. On Monday, I observed that Caroline was already at her desk. Typically, she'd arrive slightly later. That day, she wore headphones, her focus on the computer, tapping away as if engrossed. I passed by without comment, gave a nod, and took my seat. However, I sensed a change. Something had shifted. During lunch, we were alone in the break room. She didn't respond to my presence. Instead, she remained focused on her screen, oblivious to me. I grabbed my sandwich from the refrigerator, causing her to glance at me. Have you survived since last Friday? She replied, half smiling. Just about. I answered. The sliders weren't FDA approved, and she laughed, easing the tension somewhat. We sat near a small round table by the window with a salad and my ham and cheese sandwich. She fiddled with her salad while I devoured mine. I wondered if I had said something odd the previous night. She noticed without looking up. I paused, swallowed. Were you referring to sincere matters? She looked at me briefly. Yes, that. I often do that. Say something, then act as if I didn't. Her tone softened. Indeed, that's a habit of mine. I stared at her for a moment longer than was appropriate. She returned my gaze without blinking. This time, she wouldn't look away. Afterward, our interactions weren't overtly flirtatious, but they weren't neutral either. Every joke seemed to have a double meaning, and each glance lingered a touch longer than necessary. Despite staying composed, she was particularly skilled at it. Later in the week, we had a late conference call with the vendor, following which most of the team logged off. I remained to complete a bug report, and so did Caroline. Wanting to leave? She asked, standing behind me, jacket in hand. Immediately she agreed. Let's go. It seemed like you needed a drink. We wound up at a quaint bar nearby the workplace, not bustling. The lights were dimmed, old leather booths lined the room, soft music played, and it was mostly populated by locals. I asked for a whiskey on the rocks, but was served a beer instead. She leaned back against the booth and sighed as if it had been an endless string of Mondays. We didn't delve into work matters. Instead, she inquired about my family. I shared that I had a younger sister in Oregon and my mother resided in Jersey City. She asked if our relationship was strong, to which I responded, attempting to be truthful. She mentioned her estrangement from her ex, having not spoken for over 2 years. In a moment of openness, she shared an instance where we both gave up. Neither of us had actively sought it, and I was unsure how to respond. So, I chose to listen. She contemplated her drink, spinning it slowly. Ever pondered it? She questioned, referring to marriage, family, and such. I chuckled weakly. I supposed so, not recently though. It seemed like another realm. You understand? She confirmed. Yes, I do. We departed the bar around 9. She walked a bit ahead, her hands in her pockets, staring at the night sky as if reading it. We halted at a crossroads. The street was quiet. She smiled at me, but her eyes remained serious. You're the sort of man I'd marry again, she said, laughing afterward. I laughed uneasily. I wasn't sure how to react. That was a compliment, wasn't it? She didn't laugh back, but merely tilted her head. Did you think that was a joke? I don't know. She grinned then, the kind of smile people use when they're reconsidering something they shouldn't have said. Changing the subject, she inquired about something else, discussing the bar's musty old book scent, her longing for libraries, and the disposability of individuals in dating apps. A thought lingered. The following day, events took on a strange turn, not negatively, but subtly. We were at a meeting with the entire product team. A joking comment about deadlines was made, and everyone laughed. I retorted dryly about how many sprints had finished on time, causing laughter among the group. Caroline, seated opposite me, gave me a brief, intense gaze, not a casual smile, something unique, suggesting she saw beyond what I said. This smile resonated with me. During our next shared lunch, we were at the same small table, maintaining the same casual air. I recounted a tale about a college roommate who often brought home reptiles. She laughed. Zach, your life has been quite extraordinary. You have no idea. She then spoke without breaking eye contact. She playfully suggested, I could be your wife, you know, just in case you ever wondered. Her eyes remained steady without blinking. There was an awkward silence after that. It seemed like she was presenting me with an opportunity or a challenge. I froze up, smiling nervously, a typical response when one's mind goes blank. I responded, "You'd make an ideal one," but my intention wasn't as she had hoped. It was more of a defensive move rather than a sincere reply. She half laughed and pushed her tray away, stating she needed to go back to her desk. Throughout the day, she remained kind and professional, yet there was something unexplainable between us. For the first time since we met, I found myself clueless about her thoughts. The next morning, she didn't speak a word to me, not in a cold or hostile way. She simply walked past my workstation as if I wasn't there. I watched her interact with others, laugh, and assist an intern with a document, all routine behavior. To me, it was an eerie void that enveloped me, and I delved deep into contemplation about it. I kept replaying the incident from lunchtime, specifically her words. "I might become your wife, you know, if you ever ask." Was this a jest? A test? A challenge? Had I failed? I found myself unable to focus. For over 2 hours, I labored over correcting a trivial script, only later realizing it was merely a typo in a single line. I rose to grab some coffee and observed her by the kitchen chatting with Nate from DevOps. I overheard parts of their conversation. She was genuinely laughing. This fact rankled me. I shouldn't have let it, but she was older. We had only known each other for a few months, and we hadn't even shared a kiss. Yet, in that moment, I felt as though I had misplaced something that hadn't yet begun. That night, I returned home and spent some time immersed in darkness, refraining from turning on the television or playing music. All I did was sit there with my phone clutched in my hand. 12 times I opened the chat, typed messages like, "Was that serious?" but deleted them all. Around midnight, I threw my phone across the bed and tried to sleep, but couldn't. At about 1:30 a.m., I got up and walked around the block, eventually ending up outside the 24-hour diner. Inside, I had an unneeded coffee while watching people come and go, wondering if she had moved on from me in her mind. The next few days were difficult. She remained cold, professional, yet not harsh. No more jokes, no more glances, no more what-ifs. I kept making mistakes, missed deadlines, forgot Zoom meetings, even walked into a glass door in the foyer while texting and leaving hurriedly. Caroline observed my clumsiness, smirked, but said nothing. I was spiraling downward. On Friday evening, I worked late to finish a backlog ticket. The office was mostly empty, and I could hear the cleaner pushing a mop down the hall. Glanced at Caroline's workspace. She was absent. This hit me more than expected. A week passed. She would still be here late. We might have shared cocktails or chuckled over microwave noodles. Opened Slack, began typing. Wish to chat? Deleted it. Typed again. Concerning your lunchtime remarks. Erased that too. Then shut my laptop. Told myself to forget about her. Managed up to Saturday afternoon. In the supermarket, stood frozen in the frozen pizza section, scrutinizing various brands as if they held significance. Phone buzzed. Message from Nate. Saw Caroline last night. Narrowly avoided death with Liam. Thought you'd want to know. Didn't reply. Stood there motionless. The joke was unintentional, just gazing at the screen. That night, sat on my porch with a beer, watching cars pass by. Tried not to care, but it consumed me. Had no right to feel jealous, blown it. Let the chance slip away. Initially, I misconstrued her statements as jest, yet they were far from it. Maybe she had found someone else, or the chance she presented to me was no longer valid. Over the past weeks, I pondered over everything she said, including her honesty, subtle smiles, and the phrase in the car, "Don't fall for me unless you're ready for the real thing." She wasn't joking around. I had been excessively cautious, too stunned, too hesitant. On Sunday morning, I woke up with a headache. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table as if it were my only chance. I reopened her chat thread, and this time, I didn't overthink. I typed, "Coffee, I owe you a better reaction," and hit send. No emojis, no nervous punctuation, just that. She didn't reply for an hour. I checked my phone 12 times, my coffee grew cold, I started pacing the apartment. Finally, her response came. "Tomorrow? After work?" No smiley, no extra words. Exactly like mine. Monday slogged by like molasses in January. At 9 a.m., the clock seemed taunting. Caroline avoided eye contact until midday. Around 4:45 p.m., she briefly glanced before resuming her task. At 6 p.m., I gathered my belongings and exited. She was waiting outside, leaning on her car keys. She didn't utter a word as I approached, only nodded towards the passenger seat. We rode in silence for 5 minutes, with soft jazz playing, a tune she always enjoyed. Eventually, she asked, "Are you ready to discuss?" I nodded. "Yes, I am." We pulled into an uncharted cafe parking lot. It was quiet, dimly lit, and mostly empty. We ordered drinks. I sat at a booth by the window, and this time the silence didn't feel awkward, but expectant. Pausing, I looked at her, saying, "I wasn't certain what to say when you proposed that idea during lunch, about becoming my wife." She remained motionless, neither blinking nor betraying any hint of jest. Initially, I assumed you were joking, but your gaze held an intensity that left me in no doubt. She leaned back and crossed her arms, making me regret my hesitation. She gave a slow nod. "I was not trying to alarm you, Zach. My intent was neither hurried nor fear-inducing. Instead, I've grown tired of men treating me flippantly. I didn't believe you would act this way." I glanced down at the cup. It was an involuntary action. I murmured, "I didn't anticipate your sincerity." There was a brief pause before she replied, "Neither did I." That statement resonated profoundly. Neither of us had anticipated the situation, yet it was evident. I fixed my gaze on her for a lengthy moment. She wore no smile nor feigned jest, only quiet anticipation. We sat in silence for a while after that, a silence where our thoughts seemed to mirror each other, but I'm uncertain about how to express what I feel. The nearby cafes were hushed. Cups clinked softly. The only audible sound was the subtle hum of indie music. Caroline brought her drink to her lips, took a sip. She seemed preoccupied, gazing out the window as if miles away. I felt my words had missed their mark. I feared losing her entirely. "It seems I hadn't anticipated you taking me seriously." She eventually spoke, and I met her gaze. "Why not?" She shrugged casually. "Because most men don't. I often make light of things, saying things others find hard to accept. I'm used to people dismissing my jokes or growing uncomfortable, assuming I'm joking. Alternatively, you might take it seriously. Alternatively, not understand my intent. It was something about being your wife that I mentioned earlier. I thought you'd either laugh along or back away." I remained silent, feeling the sweat on my palms slightly. Instead of reacting as expected, she continued, "You did the third thing. You froze." I released a breath, nearly laughing, but not quite. "Yes, I did." She offered a small smile. I didn't respond. "Because I wanted you to propose. Or something absurd. I just needed to know if you'd consider it." I nodded in response. Indeed, I had entertained the idea. "Yes, I have. That's the problem." Her expression showed surprise. "I ponder over you more than I care to admit. I muse about the absurdities of your statements, imagine the comfort of returning home to you, and consider how content I am in your company. It's unfortunate, isn't it?" She looked at me slowly, not as before with flirtation or teasing. This was a reading. I grasp what you imply, she said. You doubt it because it lacks drama. Indeed, I replied. I've lived through the drama. In a soft voice, she confessed, I married young. He was charming, outspoken, and passionate. Yet he was a disaster. Everything was conflict or chaos. Nothing was stable. We both refused to admit our errors. It lasted for 6 years. Why 6? I asked. I kept hoping it would settle, that we only needed time. Time unveiled the vast disparities between us. She glanced at her coffee cup. I'm no longer in search of fireworks, Zach. I yearn for serenity, for someone attentive, a listener. I gazed at her intently. For once, I didn't feel like a child conversing with an elder. Instead, it felt like two mature individuals engaged in earnest discussion. However, I wasn't tainted by this feeling. I'm uncertain about the prospect of marriage, I admitted truthfully. But what I am certain of is that I'm not ready to part ways with you. This statement stirred an emotional response from her. Her lips parted slightly, yet she remained silent. I'm not urging us to dive headfirst into something, nor am I suggesting we inform anyone, I continued. I'm merely stating I'm present, and I no longer find humor in things. She returned a smile. Your sentiment resonated with me this time, she said, because I too had grown weary of jesting. Following the cafe, she proposed a walk. We ambled around a serene park nearby. The air was crisp, and the lighting was subdued. In the quiet evening, only occasional joggers and couples strolling hand in hand were about. She kept glancing at me, and I noticed it too. I've never told any of my colleagues this, she admitted, but I find spending time with you outside the office more pleasurable than within. I grinned, delighted. That means a lot coming from you, considering we share our share of tense moments during stand-ups. She chuckled softly. Hardly. As we passed an empty bench, I instinctively took her hand. She didn't resist. We stayed there, relaxed and unhurried, without any specific plans or deadlines. Eventually, she turned to me and queried, So, are you going to kiss me, or just keep thinking about it? I smiled, a little bashful. Is it that clear? She confirmed with a hint of discomfort. I leaned in slowly, taking my time, feeling no pressure. When our lips met, it wasn't dramatic or passionate like in the movies. It was peaceful, comforting, and strangely familiar, something I couldn't quite put into words. She pressed her forehead against mine and murmured, It wasn't as complicated as I thought, right? Wrong, I responded. It wasn't that difficult. That night, we didn't go home together, exchange flirtatious messages, or announce our relationship statuses on social media. Instead, we accepted the situation as it was. For the first time in years, I felt untroubled about the future. The following morning at work, nothing appeared to have changed, but I could sense it. She looked up as I walked past her desk and gave me a subtle smile, a secretive gesture between two people. It wasn't what she said that sparked something, it was my response. A month had passed since our encounter at the cafe, and things didn't transform overnight, but gradually, quietly, and in a natural way. We didn't create a workplace sensation or engage in a grand romance. We opted for discretion as we both preferred, avoiding public displays of affection during meetings, no flirtatious exchanges on Slack, no clandestine kisses on stairways. Our relationship was more down to earth. We dined at each other's homes. We alternated in selecting movies that left us dozing midway through. I learned she detested folding laundry, but appreciated organizing shelves. She found out I sometimes hold debates with myself while troubleshooting code. Neither of us sprinted. That itself spoke volumes. One Friday morning, I arrived at work earlier than usual. I brought coffee, Hers was brewed with oat milk and a single pump of caramel, just how she liked it. She looked up from her screen as I placed it next to her keyboard. "Thank you," she replied, a slight smile playing on her lips. "No problem." "Temporary spouse?" I joked. She gave me a sidelong glance. "Pardon me," I winked and pointed at the t-shirt she wore the previous weekend, the one with her own handwritten Sharpie text emblazoned across the chest. "Temporary spouse," she chuckled softly, denying any profound meaning. "Don't jump to conclusions," she said. "I'm not doing that, but you seem to attach significance to it." She took a sip of coffee and relaxed. "I put it on intentionally because it made you blush." I conceded with a nod. A pause ensued, filled with tense silence. I had grown accustomed to navigating these moments without fleeing with humor. She admitted she'd been contemplating us. I concurred slowly. "I agree," I replied. She didn't hurry her words. Caroline never did. "I won't pretend I have all the answers," she said, "but this feels right." No words were necessary for my agreement. She read it on my face. We didn't cohabit yet. Not then. However, we started spending most nights at my place. It wasn't a conscious choice. It just happened. One day, her toothbrush appeared in my sink. Later, half of her wardrobe found its way into my dresser. After a minor dispute about who finished the remaining almond milk, we made up over pancakes. One evening, we were both distracted by a show neither of us was focusing on. She was comfortably nestled on my couch wearing a hoodie I used to own. Her feet were tucked within a blanket. She cradled a teacup as if it were precious. Glancing at her, I inquired, "Still think you could be my wife?" She smiled without taking her eyes off the screen. "Not now." I raised an eyebrow, but she turned to face me seriously. Possibly she replied, "If you ask the right way," I chuckled, "there is a correct approach." She nodded. "Of course, no public spectacles, no surprise performances, no rings." I questioned her. What if I asked in earnest? She switched off the toaster, crossed her arms, and looked at me. I held her gaze without joking or smiling. She said that I would say yes, but only if I am sure of it. After another pause, she suggested not doing it immediately, instead choosing to surprise each other. So we didn't rush or force labels, we simply lived together. A family cookout followed, where she met my mother who grew fond of her. Caroline was nervous, but natural. My mother hugged me later and said, "She stabilizes you." Indeed, she did in ways I hadn't realized I needed. About a year had elapsed since that lunch conversation when we went on a weekend trip to the Catskills, staying in a humble cabin with an almost non-functional fireplace and no internet. One morning, I found her on the porch in a wool sweater, her hair slightly disheveled, reading a book in the sunlight. She looked at me and smiled. "If you ever ask, I'd be willing to be your spouse." She closed the book, reclined, and said, "Then ask." So I did, without a ring and no grand plan, just words. She agreed sincerely. No jesting, no hesitation, just an affirmative response. We didn't broadcast the news on social media or announce it to everyone in the office. Instead, we cherished our secret for some time. Eventually, we confided in our closest companions, searched for a dwelling place outside the bustling city, and discovered a quaint cottage with an uneven porch and a lemon tree in its yard. As of yet, we haven't exchanged marriage vows. We don't require the label to comprehend our identity. She still occasionally cracks jokes. They continue to refer to me as youthful and leisurely. Nevertheless, when she gazes at me today, it is not a challenge. It feels like home.